to the channel Content Creator. Hope you all are doing well. And today our topic is comparative. So this topic is not as previously explained on the YouTube channel. So we will start it in a very basic manner to explain it to you in very well, so that you can clear all your doubts. So to clear your all doubt, be with this video till end. So we will the word morphology. It's derived from two Greek words. Morph means shape and logy means to study. Aristotle was the first person who was interested in morphology, mean that he was the first person who observed the living organism in a way that he started observing them and began to differentiate between them and thinking that what is how do they look like and why do they look like. So if we define morphology, it is the branch of biology that deals with the study of form and structure of the organism and their specific features. Form and structure. Form means physical appearance of the organism, physical appearance of the organism, and structure mean that the internal structure, physical structure of that organ, of that organism, and that specific feature mean that the function that is related to that form and structure of the organism organ. These three concepts, physical appearance, internal structure, and function related to that physically appearing organ or body part in an organism, is studied in morphology. Okay, another in addition to that, in morphology is of two aspects. It may be internal or it may be external. As in definition, I said form is the external morphology and structure is the internal morphology. And in external morphology, we are totally focusing on an organism outer appearance. We are totally focusing on an organism outer appearances, meaning that how an organism look like, what is the shape of the organism, how it is different from the organism in its size, color of the body, color of the eyes, teeth size, smile of an organism, smile of human beings, height. These all are physical comparisons of morphology. Those comparisons which can be seen with the naked eye are studied in external morphology, and those differences which are not seen with the naked eye, for which we need a microscope or a detailed study, are studied in internal morphology, as the blood vessels, veins, bones, cartilage differences, skeleton differences, internal digestive systems differences. These are studied in internal morphology. And to study the differences, morphology is divided into three categories: comparative morphology, functional morphology, and experimental morphology. So today our topic is comparative morphology. We will discuss the one division of morphology, which is comparative morphology, in detail. Before going towards the comparative morphology, we have to clear about the three differences, about the differences in morphology, about the difference in anatomy and the physiology. Mean that in reading or in general meaning, they look alike. Mean that many people are thinking that they're having a similar meaning, but they don't have similar meaning. They are quite different from each other. So on the screen there is a clear-cut difference between anatomy and morphology, and I will explain it to you. Morphology is to evaluate the outer appearances of an organism, and anatomy mean that internal morphology is the anatomy जो है वो हमारे पास एक anatome word से निकली है, which means to cut and observe. Mean that to observe, whenever we want to observe the anatomy of organism, the first thing for which is to cut and dissect it, because on the physical appearances there is no anatomy comparison. So physical features की studies को morphology कहा जाता है, और internal organs की study को anatomy कहा जाता है. And anatomy is the part of morphology, and morphology is the big discipline. And morphology can also be studied at molecular level. When we study the morphology at molecular level internally, then it is somewhat related to anatomy, but there was a minute difference that in morphology, if in the general terms we talk about morphology, it is the study of outer appearances, and anatomy is the study of internal organs. Next thing is physiology. Physiology is completely distinct from morphology and anatomy. It is the study of function of body parts and system of organism, either in association with each other or independently. फिजियोलॉजी में हम लोग कोई भी जो बॉडी पार्ट है किसी भी ऑर्गेनिज्म का, उसका हम लोग फंक्शन स्टडी करते हैं. वी स्टडी द फंक्शन ऑफ दैट बॉडी पार्ट in alone, mean that independent function. For example, if we talk about human hands, they are used for grasping, and if we study the human hands in comparison with the feet, then hands are used for grasping, cutting, holding, and our feet are used for walking, running. So in physiology we study the function of organism independently or in comparison with other organisms. The one of the example here is of cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels. They both are different, but they function correlatedly, and their correlatedly function was studied in physiology. And this physiology doesn't provide us an evidence about evolution. As the topic comparative morphology is the one of the main subject of evolution, mean that it is the root cause of evolution, root cause of developing the evolutionary relationship. But here the physiology doesn't provide us any evolutionary relationship, and it can also not be studied at molecular level as in case of morphology and anatomy. But in this case we only study the biochemical processes in an organism. For example, osmoregulation is one of the process studied in physiology. Digestion, absorption, assimilation, these all are the processes which we can study in physiology. So now all the concepts related to comparative morphology. So we will continue comparative morphology. Comparative morphology is the combination of two words, comparative and morphology. As comparative is obtained from a word compare, and compare is the compare or comparison. Comparison is the process or act of comparing two things. These two things can be organism, these two things can be such non-living things, these two things that are compared in a process of comparison can be organs, can be function. We can compare anything in comparison, and which is given the word here comparative. And morphology. Morphology is the outer appearance of an organism. So in the field comparative morphology, we will only compare the outer appearances of organism. We will not consider the anatomy or physiology. We are totally focused on comparative morphology, not on anatomy and physiology. Clear? So study of, if we define it, it is the study of similarities and differences in physical structures of organism in taxa to determine how they are related and different from one another. So in comparative morphology, as we are talking from similar, that we compare two things, and comparison means that we are finding the similarities and differences between them. Here we compare different organisms in different taxas. Taxas are, so we compare organisms in different taxas. Taxa is basically a categories in which we arrange the organisms, as it starts from phylum and then the species, which is the most specific taxa. And if we exemplify it, fishes is one of the taxa or one of the group of organisms in all the vertebrates. Okay? And we classify them as a separate group on the basis of their comparative morphology, mean that they are having a fins, gills, and aquatic habitat. On these basis we classify them as a fishes. But in fishes, if we मतलब अगर हम लोग fishes में comparative morphology को apply करें, तो fishes में भी हमारे पास different categories बन जाती हैं, as agnatha, cartilaginous fishes and bony fishes. Agnatha fishes are cyclostomes. They are those fishes that have suctorial mouth. And cartilaginous fishes are those fishes whose cartilage is they are having a cartilaginous skeleton, and bony fishes are those fishes that are having a bony skeleton. Okay, so here is a morphology. It was all about the introduction of comparative morphology. Hope you all understand it well, and if you are having any questions, any query, you can ask it in the comment section. I will answer it to it. And if you don't subscribe my channel, subscribe it for more such type of informative videos which are not explained on YouTube. Thank you for watching.